when you're using the primary trig ratios, it has to be what kind of triangle? It has to be a right angle triangle, okay? To use the primary trigonometric ratios, the primary trig ratios, which are sine, cos, and tan, it only works if it's a right angle triangle, okay? So when you're trying to figure out which ratio to use, sine, cos, or tan, it's always in reference to an angle. That's how you label the sides. So in this example, if angle A is the one that is referenced, if that's the one that's indicated, you will label the sides in relation to that angle. So that side BC is opposite in relation to angle A, right? Does that make sense? It's always in relation to the angle indicated. If I said using angle B, which side is opposite from angle B? Which side, BC or AC or AB? This side, right? So if we're referencing this angle, everything changes, all the labels change. This would become opposite. When you're labeling the sides, you're labeling it in reference to an angle that's indicated. So these are the three trig ratios. And what can you use to remember them? So, ka, toa. Sine ratio is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, right? Cosine ratio is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent ratio is equal to opposite over adjacent. Memorize this, and it'll be easy to solve. So on page 15, you were given a triangle, a right angle triangle, and it said, what is sine L equal to? So we're referring to angle L. In reference to angle L, which side is opposite? Yes, this is opposite the angle. Which side is adjacent to this angle? 8. And you can always label your hypotenuse first, because the hypotenuse will never change no matter which angle you're talking about, because the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. Okay, so the first step, label the triangles, and then just figure out the ratios. And I always like to write SOHCAHTOA somewhere on my page when I'm doing this. So we're trying to find the ratio for sine L. That just means you're referring to this angle. So we know that we have to write opposite over hypotenuse. So what is it? Opposite over hypotenuse is what? Ratio 6. Hypotenuse 6 over 10. Write it as a decimal. 0.6. So sine L is equal to 0.6. Okay, if we were to figure out the ratio for cos L, same angle, that's reference, so I don't have to change this way I've labeled the triangle, because we're still referring to angle L. What's the cosine ratio equal to? Ka, adjacent over hypotenuse, so what is it? What's the ratio? What's adjacent? 6, 8, or 10? And what is the hypotenuse? So the cos ratio is equal to what? 0.8. And the tan ratio in reference to angle L as well. Opposite over adjacent is 6 over adjacent is 8. What is that as a decimal? 0.75. So those are the three ratios when we're referring to angle L. Okay, it's important the way you label it. So triangle XYZ, so let's draw a right angle triangle, because we know one of the angles is a right angle. Which angle is 90 degrees? Okay, so this has to be Y, and this would be, it doesn't matter if I put X and Z, it doesn't matter what order, but now when I'm labeling the side lengths, oh, sorry, they gave you the side length. So XY is 7, YZ is 24, and XZ is 25. So label them according to the triangle. But what's important here is you might get into questions like this later on. If this is angle Z, this side across from it would be labeled as side length Z. So you might get questions like this, okay, where they're not going to give you these letters. This side length would be y because it's opposite angle y. And this side length would be what? X, side length x. But in this case, we're just looking at the side lengths from one point to the other, okay? So what is the question asking? Which ratio represents cosine x? So we're looking for cos x. What is the cosine ratio? Cosine ratio is equal to what? Okay, so I'm just going to write here adjacent over hypotenuse so I remember what I'm trying to figure out. And it's in reference to angle x. So we're going to label the triangle in relation to that angle. Which side would be opposite angle x? What's the value of the side that's opposite angle x? Here's angle x. Is this side opposite angle x? Is this side opposite angle x? Or is that side opposite angle x? So what's the letter? YZ is opposite angle x, right? It's opposite the angle. It doesn't touch the angle. If it touches the angle, it's adjacent. So which side is adjacent? XY. Use the letters. This is adjacent. And obviously, this is across from the right angle, so that would be the hypotenuse. So we know that the cosine ratio is adjacent over hypotenuse. So just fill it in. What's the value for the adjacent side? 7. What's the hypotenuse? 25. That's it. What's the ratio? What's 7 divided by 25? Pardon? 0.28.